Hello students. So in my last video we studied and talked about some structures and forms that deal with comparing. So we talked about comparative and superlative adverbs. So my focus in my last lesson was not on comparing using the adjectives, but rather comparing using the adverbs, So we said we usually form comparative and superlative adverbs with more and most. However, we add the ER and EST to some adverbs. Here is an example. Please speak more slowly. Please speak more slowly. Slowly is an adverb. Now, Tom works harder than Sam. Harder is an adverb. And then we've got less and least. So less is the opposite of more. Least is the opposite of most. We can use them with adjectives, adverbs, and uncountable nouns. Here's the example. My dad bought the least expensive TV in the shop. Or who earns less money? Teachers or nurses? Then we studied and we talked about some other forms, like number one, we often use a superlative with the present perfect and ever. That's the least funny film I've ever seen. That's the least funny film I've ever seen. Two, we can make comparisons with simple nouns. Like she's more confident than her brother. And also with clauses. She's less talkative than she used to be. Here's the clause. Three, we use double comparatives. To say that something is changing. Now here's an example. You're getting taller and taller. This is what we call a double comparative. Taller and taller. So, four, we use the ... and the and comparatives to say that one thing changes with another. Now here's the example. The more I eat, the fatter I get. The more I study, the smarter I get. Excellent. So, let's practice. Comparison. Complete the questions with the words in brackets using a superlative form and present perfect with ever. Then, working in pairs, ask and answer the questions. Now, we've got questions. What's, thing you, we've got the adjective brave and the verb do. So what are we going to do? We're going to use the superlative form with the present perfect and ever. So it should go this way. What's the bravest thing? You have ever done? What's the bravest thing you have ever done? The bravest, superlative form of the adjective brave. Now, famous, the verb see. So, who's the most famous person you've ever seen? Who's the most famous person you've ever seen? Or you have ever seen. Present perfect. Now, three, what's idea you? We've got good, the adjective good, and have. So, superlative of the adjective good, best. So, what's the best idea you have ever had? What's the best idea you've ever had? Now, four, we've got what's, film, you, scary, and the verb watch. The adjective scary and the verb to watch. So, what's the scariest What's the scariest film you have ever watched? What's the scariest film you have ever watched? Number 4, we've got what, outfit, you, and we've got bad and the verb to wear. Bad, the adjective, and the verb to wear. So, what's the worst? What's the worst outfit, you have ever worn? You have ever worn. Then, 6, what's mistake, you, the adjective is big, and the verb is to make. So, what's the biggest mistake you have ever made? You have ever made. What's the biggest mistake you have ever made? And remember, big, we said, because we have a short vowel, big, so we need to double the consonant. So it should be biggest with double G, the biggest you have ever made. Then we've got what's, you, without food, the adjective long, and the verb go. So it should be like this. What's the longest you have ever gone without food? What's the longest you have ever gone without food? Excellent. Now, you can answer these questions. You can think about answers to these questions. Now, we are going to practice the double comparative. Now look, we've got the adjectives bad, crowded, far, funny, impatient, and nervous. Number 1, fewer people must be driving to work because the buses are getting, double comparative, because the buses are getting more and more crowded. Fewer people must be driving to work because the buses are getting more and more crowded. 2, I love this comedian. His jokes just get with funny. His jokes just get funnier and funnier. Now 3, Rosie became as she waited to do her skydive from a plane. So Rosie became more and more nervous as she waited to do her skydive. Now 4, Janet's son behavior is becoming behavior. Now her son's behavior is becoming worse and worse. She should be stricter with him. Now 5, hurry up, Dad. Mom's in the car and she's getting more and more impatient. 6, I'm running every day, so I should be able to complete the race. I'm running with far, I'm running farther and farther or further and further every day, so I should be able to complete the race. Excellent. Now, you can think of extending these sentences using your own ideas. So you can pause the video and you can write down these sentences and complete them. Now you have to think about them. For example, the longer I study English, and you remember the rule we said when we've got two elements depending on each other. The longer I study English, comma, the more, for example, the more confusing it gets. The longer I study English, the more confusing it gets. Now, 2, the angrier she got, for example, the louder her voice gets. You can think of other things. You can come up with other possibilities. For example, 3, the more time I spend with my parents, the better I feel, for example. Now, the more coffee he drank, or 5, the more expensive the restaurant, for example, the better the food is. Excellent. Now, you can, when you have time, you can, for example, think of these ideas. Forming questions, for example, or thinking of someone in your class actually. For example, now, talk to your partner and find out the answers to these questions. You can think about them. Now, for example, number 1, lives further from school, question mark, has had a more serious injury, went to bed later last night, loses your temper more often, is more ambitious, has been to the cinema more recently, or can hold your breath for longer. Now, here are my examples. For example, we can ask someone a question. How far do you live from school? About 5 kilometers. What about you? About 5 kilometers about you. You can practice these questions, or you can ask the question, for example, who lives the furthest from school? Who has had a more serious injury? For example, in your family or in your class. Excellent. So, now, as we are done with comparison, now today we are still in grammar, we're still doing grammar, so we are going to talk about what we call in English, talking about imaginary situations. Situations that are unreal, or situations that are unlikely to happen, Now, I want you to look at this picture. Look carefully at this picture, and I want you to think about what's going on. So we see a mother, and we see also her teenager son. Now, the mother looks angry. And she's blaming or she's fussing at her son for some reason we don't know. But if you look carefully at the son, now we see like he's wearing scruffy jeans and loose shirt. So this is the type of clothes that usually mothers do not like. And we can see like here, we can see a computer game and a console and a computer and a controller, a game controller. So it's like a teenager is spending too much time playing games, and the mother is angry at him, and she's blaming him. Excellent. So you can take note of our new grammar lesson. It's talking about imaginary situation. So, in talking about imaginary situation, we are going to talk about conditional sentences, and more precisely, the second conditional. Now look, I can talk about imaginary situations and things I would like to change. So, by the end of this grammar lesson, you will be able to talk about some unlikely to happen situations or imaginary situations and things you would like to change Okay. Now, the mom and the son. The mom and the son. Sam. The son's name is Sam. So here's the conversation. That's going on between the mom and the son. Now look, mom, I wish you'd throw those old jeans out. They are so scruffy. Mom, I wish you'd. So you see here we've got apostrophe D and an infinitive. I wish you would, because this apostrophe D stands for would. I wish you would. I want you to remember this structure. Now this form, I wish you would throw those old jeans out. They are so scruffy. They are so scruffy. The jeans are torn and scruffy. Sam, I like them. If I had more money, I'd buy some new ones, but I don't. So here's our if sentence or conditional sentence that we are going to explore, that we are going to study. So you see we've got an if clause and the main clause. If I had more money, I'd buy. And remember, we said this D stands for would. I would buy some new ones, but I don't. So this is the imaginary situation that we are talking about. Now, he doesn't have money to buy jeans. So, mom, if you didn't buy so many computer games, you would have more money. If you didn't buy so many computer games, you would have more money. This is imaginary and unreal because the boy has spent all his money on games. Sam, if only I could leave school and get a job. If only I could. Now look, if only, and we've got could plus the infinitive of the verb. So, if I could leave. This is what we call in English grammar the conditional tense. So, leave school and get a job. Mom, don't be silly anyway. I would rather you didn't wear those jeans. This evening, we are going to a very nice restaurant. I would rather stay in and watch TV. Mom, no, it's your dad's birthday. We are all going out together. Now, let's listen to the real conversation. Let's listen to the conversation.
Lesson 7D, Exercise 1.
I wish you'd throw those old jeans out. They're so scruffy.
I like them. If I had more money, I'd buy some new ones, but I don't.
If you didn't buy so many computer games, you would have more money.
If only I could leave school and get a job.
Don't be silly. Anyway, I'd rather you didn't wear those jeans this evening. We're going to a very nice restaurant.
I'd rather stay in and watch TV.
No, it's your dad's birthday. We're all going out together.
Excellent. Excellent. So, we're going to talk about the second conditional. So, what's the second conditional? The second conditional is a complex sentence formed of the if clause and the main clause. That's the second conditional. Now, some other teachers call it conditional type 0, type 1, type 2, and type 3. So, since we're talking about the second, this means that this is conditional sentence type 2. So, we use the second conditional to talk about an imaginary situation or event and its result. We use the past simple for the situation or event, and would plus base form for the result. Would plus the base form. And by the base form here, we mean the infinitive without to, just the base form. For example, if you didn't buy, this is the past simple negative form. This is the negative form of the past simple. If you didn't buy so many computer games, so this is the if clause. If you didn't buy so many computer games, this is the if clause or the situation. You would have more money. So, would have in grammar is what we call the conditional tense. So remember, the conditional tense is formed with would plus the base form of the verb, the base form or the infinitive. Now, okay, that's it. Now, if, yes, excellent. So, again, so we said the second conditional, we use the second conditional or conditional sentences type 2 to talk about imaginary situations or event and their result. Now, we use the past simple, remember, the past simple for the situation or for the if clause, and we use the would plus base form or the infinitive form for the result. Now, this is important. Now, if you start your if sentence with the if clause, you need a comma after the if clause. You can also start your sentence with your if sentence with the main clause. So if you start with your main clause, there is no need for the comma. Okay, now I want you can for example pause this video and you can think for example about these prompts or these situations. Now, for example, if I didn't have to go to school, so what would happen? Question, if I didn't have to go to school? I'd leave home if I would leave home if. So you see, now number one is an if clause, and number two is a main clause. Because here we've got the conditional tense and here we've got the past simple. So try to think and try to come up with your ideas. Use your ideas. I'd leave home if I could live anywhere in the world. So could here for the ability. It's still the conditional, but it's for the ability. So sometimes we can use could instead of would in a conditional. If I could live anywhere in the world, if I could drive, if I had £3,000 for a holiday, if I found £100 in the street, if I found, past simple, if I found £100 in the street, I would go to the police station and tell them about it. That's the best thing you can do. Okay, 7. I would never tell anyone if, I would keep it as a secret if, and 8, if I fell out with my best friend. If I fell out with my best friend. Fell, past simple of fall. So what would you do if you fell out with your best friend? So you would say, for example, now you have to come up with your ideas. You can say, for example, I would apologize. I would say sorry. I would go and say sorry to my friend. Excellent. Now, excellent. Now, the second conditional, or what some teachers call conditional sentences type 2. We use the second conditional to talk about situations that are unlikely. They're not going to happen, or they're simply unreal. Now, it can refer to the present or the future. They can refer to, these sentences, they can refer to the present or the future. Now, here's the example. If I had $1 billion, if I had $1 billion, I would live on a desert island. But in reality, it's an unreal situation because now I don't have $1 billion. Excellent. So we use the past simple. Look at had. Had is the past simple of have in the if clause, and would plus the base form, would plus the infinitive, or simply I call it would plus the infinitive, I call it the conditional tense. Would. And sometimes, as we have seen, sometimes we can use could to talk about some kind of ability. Now, in the result clause, the if clause and the main clause are the result clause. Now, here is the conditional clause or the if clause, and here is the result clause, or what I sometimes call the main clause. If I had $1 billion, I would buy a castle. Now, we're starting with the if clause. What do you notice here? We've got a comma. Separating the result clause with the conditional clause, because we are starting the sentence with the if clause. But, you know, we can start with the result clause or the main clause. Like when we say, I would buy a castle if I had $1 billion. I would buy a castle if I had $1 billion. So if you start your sentence with I would buy a castle, there is no need for the comma. You won't need the comma. Excellent. Now, after if and wish, now remember this. After if and wish, we sometimes use where with he or she. Now, here's the trick. Both were and was are correct. Now, academic English, formal English, we use were. And this is what you are going to use in your baccalaureate exam. If you ever happen to have like questions on or exercises on the conditional sentences. But if you go to an English-speaking country, you might hear people when they use conditional sentences, they might say was. So was is informal. However, where is more appropriate in formal situations. So you are going to use where, like if I were, if you were, if it were, I wish you were, I wish he were, for the past simple instead of was, because it's more formal and more appropriate. Now listen. If I were you, I'd If I were you, I'd give the money to charity. If I were you, I'd give the money to charity. I would give the money to charity. Or, if he were older, he'd understand what I'm saying. If he were older, he would understand what I'm saying. Now, in reality, he's not old. That's the reality. That's why we said imaginary situations, or situations that are not real and real, or that are not unlikely to happen. Excellent. Now, we're going to talk about some mixed sentences. And by mixed sentences, I'm talking about we might have conditional sentences, the first conditional, we can have the zero conditional, and we can have the third conditional sentences. But remember, our focus today is on the second conditional. The second conditional. Now look, complete the second conditional sentences with the correct form of the verbs in brackets. Now, we've got I not stop playing football, not break my ankle. So what do you think with if? Now we can add if here. If here. So, I would not stop playing football if I didn't break my ankle. If I didn't break my ankle. Now, this is conditional type 2. We can use, sometimes it's better for this sentence, it's better to use it in the third conditional. And you know the third conditional is formed with the past perfect in the if clause, and the perfect conditional. And the perfect conditional is formed with would plus have plus the past participle of the given verb. Like here, for example, if I use it with the third conditional, I would say, if I hadn't, I wouldn't have stopped playing football if I hadn't broken, past perfect, my ankle. Now, number 2, if that new phone be £100 cheaper, I to buy it. If that new phone, so new phone is the third person singular. So what have we said? Now, can we say was? No, we cannot. We said was is not formal. So after if there's no was, we use were. So listen, if that new phone were to be, the simple past of to be, if that new phone were £100 cheaper, I would buy it. I would buy it. 3, if I to fall out with my best friend, if I to fall out with my best friend, I to try to make up, So, if I fell, past simple of fall, F-E-L-L. If I fell out with my best friend, I would try to make up. Second conditional. Now, number 4, I not play tennis tomorrow. So here we've got tomorrow. So it's better to use the first conditional. And the first conditional contains the present simple with the future simple. Now, because we got tomorrow. So, I will not play tennis tomorrow. I will not play tennis tomorrow if it is not a sunny day, not be, if it is not a sunny day. Excellent. Now, 5. If I, so we said past simple in the if clause, and we said we cannot use was, we cannot say was, so we say were. If I, and we've got negative form, if I were not so shy, I would try out for the school play. If I were not so shy, I would try out for the school play. Imaginary situation. Because the speaker is, in reality, is shy. Excellent. Now 6. Now some people, you know, not all people have computers at home. Some people are poor and still don't have computers. Now, I to join Facebook if I to have a computer at home. I would join Facebook if I had, past simple of have, a computer at home. 7. I not get on. Not get on. I not get on with my sister if we must share a room. If we must share a room. I will not. Now for this sentence, it's better to use conditional sentence type 1. I will not get on with my sister if we must share. And must, we've got a modal verb. Must share. Modal verb, this is the present simple, must. Must always describes the present or hints to the present. We must share a room. Excellent. Now, so we have practiced the second conditional. Now we are going to move to some forms. I wish, if only, and I'd rather. I wish, if only, and I'd rather. We are going to study them and talk about them. So let's try to find these forms in our conversation. The conversation between the mother and Sam and her son. Excellent. Now remember, I wish, if only, and I'd rather. I wish, if only, and I'd rather. Mom, I wish you would throw. I wish you would throw. Now, remember this form. Remember this structure. I wish, would, base form of the verb. I wish you would throw those old jeans out. Then, if only I could leave school. If only I could leave school. So we've got if only and a past simple verb. Past simple verb. Here we've got I wish you would throw. And here we've got if only I could leave. Past simple. Don't be silly. Anyway, I would rather you didn't wear. Past simple. I'd rather you didn't wear. Past simple after I'd rather. Now, Sam, I'd rather stay in and watch TV. Now, I'd rather and I'd rather. Here, after I'd rather, we've got past simple. And here, after I'd rather, we've got the infinitive. Are they the same? No, they are not. Do they mean the same thing? No, they don't. They don't. Let's find out. Now, number 1, we use I wish or if only with the past simple to say that we really want a situation to be different. We really want a situation to be different. I wish it was Saturday. I wish it was Saturday. So this means that the day the person is talking about is not Saturday, is another day. Now, if only I had more money. If only I had more money. If only I had more money. Past simple. If only I had. Past simple. If only I had more money. But in reality, this person, the person who is speaking, doesn't have enough money. So he's wishing, if only I had more money. 2. So number 1, we really want a situation to be different. Now number 2, we use I wish or if only with would plus the base form of the verb or the infinitive to say that we really want somebody's or something's behavior to be different. We want somebody's behavior or attitude to be different. Now, I wish or if only plus would plus the infinitive to say that we really want somebody to be different or some kinds of behavior or comportment or attitude to be different. Now, listen to this example. I wish he wouldn't speak so loudly. I wish he would not speak so loudly. This means that the person really speaks loudly. Really speaks loudly. So the speaker wish that the person who is speaking now not to speak so loudly. That's embarrassing and that's bothering him. Yes, I wish it would snow. I wish it would snow. I wish it would snow. Now this person is hoping for snow, but in reality it's not snowing. It's not snowing. Now 3, we use I'd rather with a base form to express a preference. To express a preference. Now, to talk about preference, I'd rather plus the infinitive. To talk about preference. Now, do you want a cup of tea? I'd rather have a coffee. I'd rather have a coffee. So here, when we talk about preferences, we are using, notice, we're using the infinitive. We're using the infinitive. 4, we use I'd rather with the past simple to say that we really want somebody's or something's behavior to be different. Just like number 1. Just like number 1. So we use I'd rather with the past simple to say that we really want somebody's or something's behavior to be different. Now, listen to this example. I'd rather you didn't phone me after 10 p.m. I'd rather you didn't with the past simple. You didn't phone me after 10 p.m. This means that I don't want you to call me after 10. So I want you to change this situation. You can call me before 10, but I don't want you to call me after 10 p.m. Thank you so much, and I'll be right back. Thank you so much.